It is very unpleasant when the closest people, whom you trusted more than yourself, give you a devastating surprise. Greetings, my dear friend. This story is about adultery. The hero of this story finds his wife with another man, but the most interesting thing was waiting for him ahead when his wife told him this. Let's listen and find out what happened next. And while you're listening, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give your most powerful like. Let's go! We found ourselves responsible for planning our first spring barbecue, and it was quite a challenge. My name is Ronald Wilson, but everyone calls me Ham. I'll tell you about that later. My wife Haley was thrilled with the idea of having a barbecue on April 1st. We have been married for almost 3 years and recently bought a house after the Christmas holidays. We really liked our house and the cozy cul-de-sac we lived in, located in Albany, Louisiana. I know that's not quite the right name, it's funny, but we ended up about 12 kilometers from Albany. Locals often joke that the first settlers in the area must have had a deep hatred for Albany, but they didn't have the sense to just say no. There were several couples in our neighborhood about our age, some with children and some without. Haley and I were in the second category, and at the end of February, she stopped taking contraceptives in the hope of having a baby. Our decision attracted a lot of criticism from our friends in the neighborhood, as well as both sets of parents. Using the new grill that Haley and her parents gave me for Christmas, I cooked some delicious dishes. It was possible to grill and smoke using wood pellets. While I was cooking the brisket, I looked around my yard and saw 15 or 20 neighbors who were having a lot of fun. Just when I was about to serve snacks, I suddenly needed to go to the bathroom. After walking down the corridor, I stopped abruptly outside the bathroom door. Dan was kissing Haley passionately, his hand was under her blouse, and I noticed that Haley hadn't worn a bra to the party. Why did my wife participate in a romantic moment with my friend? That was the only question that flashed through my mind before I reacted. In an instant, I was next to him, grabbed him by the back of the head, and forcefully pushed him against the wall a few centimeters from my wife's face. Unfortunately, the blow fell not on the wall but on the door frame, as a result of which Dan's nose broke, and he collapsed to the floor. No sooner had he landed on the floor than I delivered a powerful kick to his scrotum. When he collapsed to the floor, barely recovering, I kicked him a few more times so that he could feel the full force of my anger. Our guests had already gathered, and in the chaos of the house, I was forcibly restrained by 3 men, and Haley was sobbing uncontrollably next to me. Then a few neighbors dragged me out the back door onto the porch. I was worried about the snacks. There was a lot of money invested in the brisket, and I didn't want it to overcook. There were a lot of reasons that bothered me at that moment, but I'll talk about them later. The men didn't hold me for long. While chaos reigned inside, I heard someone calling an ambulance and bringing wet towels. Haley's screams were still ringing in my ears. After assuring the concerned neighbors that I was fine, they took me to the stairs leading to the backyard and told me to stay there. Soon, the air was filled with the sounds of numerous sirens. Despite the fact that I lived in a small town in Louisiana, I quickly realized that protecting my wife's honor within the walls of our own home was not as easy as I thought. An old school friend of Haley's came up to me and apologetically handcuffed me. I was then taken to the local sheriff's office, where I was placed in a cell and was awaiting transfer to the county jail. Knowing that my father would not understand me, I turned to my cousin Jared to help me find a lawyer and explained the situation to him. Later, sitting in the county jail, I was surprisingly calm about the question, why was my wife kissing Dan? It was completely unexpected because she was always loving and attentive to me. I couldn't understand why she would do that. Maybe it's that Dan and I have been spending time together since we moved to the cul-de-sac, playing darts at the local pub and sometimes going river fishing. But my knowledge of him was limited since our conversations mostly boiled down to typically masculine topics. I knew that he grew up in the suburbs of New Orleans and attended a prestigious law school in the north of the country but never graduated because his father's business failed. Growing up in our neighborhood, you quickly learn to pay attention to how someone behaves. One aspect of Dan Woodson's behavior that I found unpleasant was his attitude towards me during our stay on the river. But in the presence of other people, he behaved completely differently. It seemed to me that he was trying to prove something to himself and others. I felt that he was struggling with his self-esteem due to the failure in college, despite a successful career as a lawyer. On the other hand, I studied at a community college for only 2 years and worked as a graphic designer at a local printing company. Still, I was discouraged to see my wife kissing him in her hallway. At the time, it seemed to me that I was standing up for her, but looking back, I can say that she did not resist his advances. The situation was perplexing, especially considering their kisses and his inappropriate touching. I realized that I might have gone too far. My temper has shown up in the past, making my parents angry and worried about me. In my freshman year of high school, I played as a defender and midfielder. After 3 games of the season, I returned to the training field late at night and started looking for my watch. It was a special gift from my grandmother for my birthday, and I knew that if I didn't find it, I would get into serious trouble. Examining the bench with a flashlight, I was already on the verge of giving up until a faint female voice from the stands attracted my attention. I turned the light on the source and saw Billy Ray and Elmer, my childhood acquaintances. To my surprise, Billy Ray put his hand over the girl's mouth. I called out to them, demanding to know what was going on, and started moving towards them. Elmer appeared from under the stands, warning me not to interfere. "It's none of your business, Ronnie," he warned. As I got closer, I clearly saw that it was Marley, the girl I was in love with in high school. Curious about what was going on, I asked about the situation, ignoring Elmer's remark. I saw that he had made a grave mistake by trying to hit me, but I quickly hit him back in the lower ribs, which doubled him up in pain. When I approached Billy, he used Marley as a shield, covering her mouth with one hand and wrapping the other around her neck. "Just go away, Ronnie," he warned, his voice trembling with uncertainty. By this point, I had a clear understanding of the situation. "Let her go, Billy Ray," I ordered, "or there will be consequences." He looked panicked, pleading, "I can't, Ronnie. I can't risk going to jail for attempted assault," he added threateningly. "One more step, and I'll hurt her." I may not have been the smartest, but Billy was always one step behind. His older sister often teased him, "This boy is playing with an incomplete deck." I spoke more calmly. "So let me understand. Are you planning to kill her, then me, and then hide all the evidence?" He paused, considering the consequences, a life sentence for 2 crimes. "And Billy, I can guarantee that you won't be able to deal with me even on your best day." I sensed Billy hesitating, perhaps considering letting her go, but then he noticed Elmer sneaking up behind him. Elmer, a tough guy who grew up on a farm, delivered a powerful blow that broke my collarbone. At that moment, something inside me changed. Even after a long time, I can only remember fragments of the fight that followed. Both Billy Ray and Elmer were hospitalized, with Elmer suffering a traumatic brain injury and being temporarily euthanized. Billy Ray, on the other hand, suffered a list of injuries, and his face looked like a dirt track after a race. I was left with a broken collarbone and spent the night in the hospital under observation. The parents of both boys decided to press charges of assault. Marley's father was the one who saved me from trouble, his brother was the district attorney, and Marley's father convinced him to drop the charges against me. I couldn't play football that year, but they started loving me even more when I started my second year. Everything changed. I did my best to earn a place in the starting lineup. I played aggressively, that's what I was told. The local team started calling me the Hammer, but over time, it became just Ham. Unlike the movie, I didn't get a scholarship, and our team never reached the state level. It was just me and the quarterback on the team, and we finished the season with a disappointing 6-5. Our town was too small for the scouts to worry about it, but I didn't mind because I had a lot of friends and was known as the elephant in the china shop. Marley stayed with me until graduation. She enrolled at the University of Texas. We broke up peacefully, but she kept in touch with me throughout my freshman year of college. She was the one who convinced me to go to community college, for which I am very grateful to her. I became very attached to her. The next meeting took place right after the end of the last semester of my undergraduate studies. It was a senseless bar fight that still makes me wonder why I got into it and didn't leave. I didn't have any drinking buddies at the bar, and although I recognized many of the participants, I decided not to get involved in the fight. In my drunken state, my anger flared up when I was hit on the head with a beer bottle. Fortunately, luck was on my side again when the judge identified the troublemakers and allowed about 15 of us to leave with just a warning, but the charges were still recorded on our records. I was looking forward to talking to my wife in the morning, but unfortunately, it didn't happen. My father couldn't find a lawyer for me fast enough, or maybe he didn't put enough effort into it, so I ended up hiring a public defender. Judge Tubbs looked visibly displeased as the prosecutor detailed the charges and talked about Dan's injuries. "I think I was going crazy that day, Mr. Wilson," he told me. "I don't want to release you on bail in this case for fear that you might escape." I told the lawyer about my financial difficulties, saying that I could barely afford gasoline, let alone a plane ticket. As a result, I was detained and returned to the county jail. A few hours later, I found myself in a room with a lawyer and Haley, discussing the upcoming trial. It turned out that my father had hired a lawyer on my behalf, whom I was to meet the next morning. He repeated the accusations against me and warned me not to talk to anyone, including my cellmate. After he left, I was left alone with my wife. "Ham," she exclaimed when he left the room. "I'm so sorry for my role in this. I feel terrible." Her words didn't make any impression on me, so I just sat and looked at her. In the end, she seemed to have figured it out. "It was a joke, Ham," she cried. "A stupid April Fool's joke." She looked more dramatic than usual, but her demeanor remained the same. I couldn't tell if it was because of my anger at her or something else, but I could see through her facade. "A joke?" I asked incredulously. "Why would that be?" "Why?" "I'm really sorry, Ham," at least there was remorse in her voice. "I thought our joke would be hilarious and the neighbors would like it. He mentioned how everyone remembers how cool you were at school. I was filled with pride for our house and for you at the barbecue, so I probably naively agreed. But after what happened, I realized it was a stupid decision. The real mistake was that you agreed to his proposal. I caught you kissing, and it doesn't seem to be the first time. His hand was on your bare chest, Haley. This April Fool's joke won't fool me." She studied my expression carefully, looking for confirmation but couldn't find it. "Why did you have to pretend to be a fighter?" She shifted her attention. "Ham, you're in serious trouble. He's going to need a nose job, and his ribs are broken. When you knocked him down, I learned from his brother that he has lost both testicles and may be suffering from chronic pain disease. You were in the hospital visiting your partner, right?" I chuckled. Haley seemed annoyed that I wasn't as ignorant as she assumed. "We have a serious problem," she said, raising her voice. I decided to try to remind him that we ourselves provoked this situation with a stupid prank, but he doesn't care. He wants revenge. He threatened to send you to jail and wait for me when you get out. Great, I sighed. Now I have to worry about some crazy person chasing me. Let him know that I have more friends than he does. Whatever happens to me, 3 times more will happen to him. Stop playing the tough guy, Ham, she told me. We made a huge mistake, but you're the one facing jail time. I can't handle it. I've never seen you like this before. I've never seen anyone behave like that. Now I'm afraid of you. You don't seem to see the obvious, Haley, leaning towards her, I said. Who said I want to live with you? I'm willing to let you stay in the house until I figure this out, but then you'll have to make a plan for your stay. This house is ours because our names are listed in the deed. You are my husband, and you need to start thinking straight. Otherwise, everything will go wrong. Get out, I growled under my breath. At first, she didn't move, but when I held out my hand to her, she flinched. Unfortunately, my wrist was chained to the chair. Haley got to her feet, studying me with an incomprehensible expression on her face. Was it despair or pity? She knocked softly on the door and looked at me again. I'll be back in a few days, Ham. I hope you'll calm down by then, my future ex-wife said before leaving. I was sure he was flirting with her. At that moment, she took it as a funny challenge, but now she was trying to fight me, going from pleading to threats. I refused to tolerate her behavior, even if it meant going to jail. Perhaps marrying her was a mistake. Later, I sat in the same chair and met with Jonathan Turner, the lawyer my cousin hired. He was a tall, handsome man with thick hair and a commanding gaze. I appreciated his straightforward approach. Mr. Woodson has serious injuries, he informed me. If you are found guilty, you face a prison sentence of 3 to 5 years. But if we can prove that you were protecting your wife and property, that would be the ideal outcome. Ultimately, the outcome of the case will depend on the judge we choose. I think the most effective approach is to focus on your defense. You witnessed a man attacking your wife, and this suggests that you reacted instinctively, not fully understanding the situation. I had to agree with his assessment. During the conversation, we discussed the possibility of developing a defense strategy and possible legal proceedings if I plead not guilty. It was noted that bail was not an option. I told him of my intention to have Mr. Turner transfer the deed to my cousin. My strategy involved redirecting payments for the house to another bank account, but without actually making mortgage payments. It was clear that Haley would not be able to pay the mortgage unless she sought financial help from her parents. I hoped that I would be released before the bank started foreclosure proceedings because I did not want to continue financing my wife's living expenses without having any income. The changes would most likely have forced her to move, perhaps to her parents or to her lover at work. The situation was dire. Jared talked to my colleague, Darren McDonald, who was one of my closest friends. The printing house was a small family business, and the presence of all employees was extremely important for smooth operation. Missing deadlines could lead to the loss of customers. Darren did his best to solve the problem with the owners and achieve temporary success, but the uncertainty about my status at work persisted. For days later, Haley visited me again, but I refused to see her. I couldn't tell if she was angry, disappointed, or even relieved. Shortly afterwards, Mr. Turner presented me with the terms of a plea bargain, which I rejected. It was decided that the case would be referred to court. The whole process lasted almost 45 days. During this time, Haley, as well as my cousin Jared and my parents, showed their support by sitting together, probably in solidarity. After the first week, I rarely saw Haley. My parents mentioned during their visits in prison that she was upset that I refused to see her. During the morning break, Mr. Turner came up to me and urgently asked to talk to Haley. "The jury notices everything during the trial, Ronald," he said. "If they see that your own wife does not support you, it may raise doubts. We must present a united front. I understand that you are upset by her actions, but remember, our plan is to present Mr. Woodson as the aggressor and both of you as victims." I agreed with his opinion and thought the same way myself. If she could put on such a show, then so could I. Haley looked worried, although it could have been caused by fatigue. "Hello, Ham," she greeted me solemnly. "How are you?" "It's fine," I replied emotionlessly. "How are you?" She didn't answer. Instead, she scanned the room and refused to meet my eyes. "Are we getting divorced?" she asked after a pause. "I'm not sure," I replied with a shrug. "There are a lot of things that we need to figure out before I can answer this question." "Why don't you just explain and stop joking about April Fools?" I asked. "It's not what you think," she insisted. "It was just a joke. It's hard for me to understand why I agreed to this in the first place. I know perfectly well how bad it looks, but I assure you, it was an isolated incident." I thought about it, considering the answer. "Okay, Haley," I paused to collect my thoughts. "I will speak calmly and honestly. I feel like I have to tell you the truth. What I witnessed is completely different from what happened the first time. There was no feeling of awkwardness, your eyes were closed, you had one arm around his neck and the other around his waist. I saw him touch your chest without any hesitation. You seemed to know each other like old lovers. Did you know him before he moved to the area, or did you become friends a few months after he arrived?" Haley tried to stay calm. She claimed that she met him only a few months ago during a walk around the neighborhood that we both went on. I was skeptical. There was nothing authentic about her behavior and look, and worst of all, I saw her true identity. When we fell in love and got married, I was blinded, but now I saw that she was selfish. While the trial was going on, Haley was present in court, probably at the insistence of my lawyer. The main problem was that all our neighbors turned against me. Their testimony contradicted our carefully thought-out defense. I guess I can't blame them for that decision. They didn't want to live next door to a man they considered unstable. I won't go into all the details because I wasn't fully focused during the trial. Mr. Turner spoke in detail about the sequence of events and my quick reaction, but in the end, it wasn't enough. I was found guilty. the expressions on my parents' faces will always stay with me. Even Haley was crying. 3 days later, I found myself in court awaiting the verdict and listening attentively to the judge's words. "Mr. Wilson," he cleared his throat before breaking the news, "a jury consisting of your neighbors found you guilty. Despite the fact that the incident occurred in your own home, the use of excessive force has been confirmed. I regret to inform you about the consequences of your cruel antics and hope that being behind bars will make you think and grow up. I hope that you will learn how to manage your anger, which has caused problems in the past, and will be able to make a positive contribution to society. In this regard, I sentence you to 1 year in state prison." The judge banged his gavel, announcing the end of the trial. During my time in prison, I learned to control my temper with the help of my cellmate, a life prisoner who committed a monstrous crime. He showed me how to control my emotions. The others quickly realized that, of all the new prisoners, I was most likely not considered a valuable target. By the time of the trial, I had spent a total of 54 days in the county jail. Mr. Turner informed me that this period could be deducted from my 1-year sentence. He suggested I file an appeal, but given my financial situation, I decided it was better to just serve my time. It was almost 2 months before Haley visited me for the first time. I didn't think I'd see her again after she found out that I wasn't making payments on the house. I assumed that she would offer to pay for everything with the help of her parents, but what she actually came to tell me exceeded all my expectations. "Hon, let's not waste any time," she began. "I'm pregnant. We're going to have a baby." My lack of reaction seemed to amuse her. "Isn't that wonderful, kid? We will become parents, and we will have a lot of time to get closer to our child," I asked with a detached expression. "Whose child is this?" She turned to face me, confused. "What are you talking about?" She quickly came to her senses and began to defend herself. "I've already told you that I haven't been with anyone," she stammered. "I don't believe you," I replied icily. Haley started to shed fake tears. "What's the matter with you, hon?" "Stop it," she screamed. "You're hurting me." I remained motionless, staring at the empty wall in front of me. Haley got up and headed for the door. "Hon, we need to figure out how to pay for the house. Finding a place to live is very important now," she urged. "Please talk to your parents." But instead of following her advice, I decided to contact my lawyer. When I informed him of my wife's demand, he shook his head in disbelief. "Did she say what her deadline is now?" he asked. "I didn't ask, and I didn't really listen," I admitted. "What do you want to do?" he asked in a serious tone. "I need her to be examined quickly. Can you recommend a divorce lawyer?" He put a comforting hand on my shoulder, pointed out the reality of my financial situation. "Now you can't even pay for my services, and after your release, you may not have a job. Maybe I'll find the necessary forms on the internet, fill them out, add an extra hour to your bill, and you'll try to get her to sign them if necessary. I will help you apply for paternity." Surprisingly, I did not dispute such an unexpected offer of help. I was finally released, having been held, if I remember correctly, for 3 months and 54 days. The only downside was that I had to wear a wrist monitor for the first 2 months of my probation period. I was just lucky that I was released on time, as the bank had to change the locks in the house in just 5 days. Haley pretended to be happy after I got back. As soon as I sent her out for pizza, I contacted my cousin to talk. He informed me that the funds from the second account would cover only about 90% of the total mortgage debt, not counting interest. To save the house, he said he had to contribute his share. I agreed without hesitation. When Haley returned, we ate in silence. "We're going to lose the house," I complained. "I just found out about it today." Haley pretended to be optimistic and said, "I don't want to discuss anything today. Let's deal with the consequences tomorrow after dinner. All I want is intimacy with my husband. It's been too long." She was unpredictable. I knew she had received the letter, and Turnus had informed her in advance that she would receive a paternity notice. "Haley," I stared at her as if she were a stranger. "I know you've received a notification. We will not have sexual intercourse until I see the results confirming that this is my child." Haley hissed and began to cry. "You're heartless," she accused me. She had a tantrum that seemed to never end. Watching her behavior, I began to understand the concept of acting, and she disgusted me. Thoughts of my cellmate and his lectures filled my mind. The chair flew out from behind me as I jumped to my feet in anger. "Leave me alone," I muttered, clenching my fists. "I have made it clear that we will be able to discuss our future as soon as I see the results." Haley turned pale and retreated into our bedroom, not taking her eyes off me. Later, when I tried to enter the room, she shouted at me to sleep on the couch. The day after Haley left for work, I called the bank to find out about the payment my cousin was making. I also found a realtor, Mrs. Ellis Burns, who arrived after lunch. Despite the fact that Haley had turned into a monstrous figure, she still maintained the house flawlessly. According to calculations, we could sell the house for a little more than its value of $300,000, which would allow me to pay off Mr. Turnus. This arrangement suited me. I asked the realtor to put up the sign as soon as possible and also offered a bonus percentage if she could sell the house within 30 days. I was confident in the results of the paternity test. The realtor politely declined my offer, saying that she had enough strength to sell the apartment. Haley came home late from work. I assumed that her lover might not be fully healed yet, and I thought about it. Haley handed me an envelope with the results of the examination. Perhaps she only glanced at the for sale sign, deciding that it was the work of the bank. "I hope you're happy," she murmured. "I'm furious with you, Ham," my eyes filled with anger. "I do not know how you will fix the situation, but you will have to spend a lot of time and effort to convince me." I thought about what I found in her and just answered, "Thanks." Later, watching a football match, I was shocked by the result. Could she just accept the results without asking the doctor, or was she secretly hoping that I wouldn't check the report myself? The results showed that the probability that I am the father is 2 to 3%. After a while, she casually entered the living room and settled down on the opposite end of the sofa. "Can we put all this in the past and discuss our future?" she asked gently. "What future?" I replied calmly. In response, she gave me a strange look. At first, I thought she had just misinterpreted my words. "Now that you know the child is yours," she said, seemingly oblivious to my confusion, "we need to figure out the situation and move on." "These papers state that I am not the father," I said as if nothing special had happened. Suspicion crept into my voice when I asked, "Are you joking again?" Her reaction was instant and defensive. "Ham, what are you talking about?" she demanded. "It clearly says here that you are 98% the father." I handed her the document. "I'm amazed at your ignorance, Haley." I went out to the backyard, but Haley didn't join me. When I returned to the house and tried to enter her bedroom, the door was locked as usual. The next day, Haley did not return from work. Sensing that something was wrong in the house, upon closer inspection, it turned out that most of her belongings were gone. An apology note was left on the TV remote. I started to wonder if I was having Groundhog Day. It seemed like every day was the 1st of April. When I was sitting alone in the house, thoughts began to creep into my head. Was D&E manipulating her to provoke me into violence? Maybe they were plotting to send me back to prison and keep my property for themselves. It seemed like a plausible explanation, but then I wondered why she didn't just leave with him. I felt it was necessary to sort out the situation. It became clear to me that she had never really respected me. She thought I was easy to manipulate and that I was stupid enough to put up with her games indefinitely. I suspected that Woodson was influencing her behavior. The evening at home passed quietly, but I did not realize that I had already mentally distanced myself from Haley. I admitted that I don't care about her and I don't feel love for her. Staying at home without her was a pleasant moment. Unfortunately, the calm was short-lived. My antique alarm clock read 3:20 a.m. I could barely make out the time through the thick smoke. I quickly jumped out of bed and ran into the smoke-filled hallway. The realization hit me like a brick. The house was engulfed in flames. The fire had spread too far for me to even try to put it out. I knew I was going to die of suffocation before I could do anything. Hurriedly returning to the bedroom, I opened the window to inspect my options. A shrubbery grew below, providing a small cushion for impact. It wasn't much, but it might have softened the fall if I had managed to land successfully and roll over. But I preferred to wrap a blanket around my upper body and pull on my pants before I could count anything. I realized that the heat on Earth is much stronger. Turning over on my back, I quickly noticed that my movements were far from graceful, not like the movements of a stuntman in a movie. When I got up, it became clear that I had sprained my ankle. I reached for the phone in my pocket, dialed 911, and heard sirens approaching in the distance. After a whirlwind of commotion, I found myself hunched over on the back step of an ambulance, clutching my injured ankle. When I was brought to the department, my ankle bracelet went beyond the fence. The officers kindly took it off for me. Then, a pleasant shock awaited me. At first, I didn't realize it was Marley in the sheriff's cap. "How are you, Ham?" she smiled. I stared at her in disbelief, which made her smile fade. "Sorry, Ham," she apologized, stressing that smiles were inappropriate at the moment. Our conversation was about the fire, during which she admitted that she had been closely monitoring my situation and even ensured my safety in prison. Her unexpected confession made me feel grateful. "Perhaps because of Marley's presence, do you think she did it?" she asked uncertainly. "I don't know," I said honestly. After she tried to deceive me about her child's paternity test, she moved out, and I believe she is on the verge of a mental breakdown. "Can we discuss this tomorrow?" Without waiting for an answer, she quickly informed, "You have to change your place of residence. Even if you no longer have a home, you are still under house arrest." Wasting no time, she took me to my cousin's house at 7:30 in the evening after all the interrogations and the examination of my ankle by the paramedics. When we entered the kitchen, Marley was in a businesslike mood, and I offered her a cup of coffee. "We are looking for your ex-wife and possibly this Dan Woodson in connection with the arson that destroyed your house," she informed me. "I need to know everything that has happened since you got out of prison." I asked if the fire was deliberately set, to which she replied, "This is still under investigation, so I can't say anything definite, but yes, there were signs of suspicious chemical gases. It became known that she is expecting a child from another man, although I cannot confirm that it was Woodson. The probability of this is quite high, unless she was involved with other men while I was in custody." She also warned me that he would avenge the attack I had committed on him that led to my imprisonment. "We all know about it," she admitted. "This scoundrel mentioned this in his affidavit on his first day in the hospital." Jared was still in bed, but Marley leaned closer to me as if revealing a secret. "I would like to know if I can help you in your current difficult situation." "What do you mean?" I asked, stunned. "Is he really facing jail time for this?" "You helped me in a difficult situation, and I will always be grateful to you for that. I feel like I owe you something." I couldn't help but feel even more depressed by the realization that part of your story is related to the actions you took to keep me from being attacked. At that moment, my gaze was focused solely on her. I was fascinated by her beauty and her infectious smile. She looked amazing as always. "Arson is a crime that is difficult to prove," she began, turning the conversation in another direction. "Not because our criminologists are bad, but because experienced lawyers can manipulate evidence. If your wife was potentially involved in this case," she continued, "we want to work on resolving the situation. Can you help with that?" Marley installed a video surveillance system in Jared's living room. My cousin had to pay for the equipment to disguise it as a home security system so that our plan would not be seen as a covert operation. He was happy to help. The strategy involved inviting my wife under the pretext of a possible reconciliation. I had to wait for Marley to let me know when this meeting was going to take place. She assured me that I would get some satisfaction. After that, I couldn't help but wonder if there was a possibility of going on a date with Marley, as it was obvious that she still had feelings for me. Anyway, she instructed me on what to say and what to ask during the meeting with Haley. The goal was to provoke enough anger in her to reveal the information she was trying to hide. Haley's fiery temper could potentially lead to valuable recognition. Even if Marley and I were just friends, I wouldn't have any objections. I've been through job loss, homelessness, and a felony conviction. Fortunately, the realtor terminated our contract. I wanted to move on. A week later, the phone rang. Marley said, "I could start. It looks like Haley can't wait to talk." I hope everything goes smoothly. Jared didn't leave the room, leaving us alone. When she arrived, I handed her tea, and we sat in the living room, facing each other. Her fugue is very blurred, but I caught a couple of tricks. Marley and I have thought through our strategy on how to look calm, sad, and ready to make concessions. "Hi, Haley, how are you?" I asked. "Not really, Ham," she replied. "I miss you. I can't stop thinking about home. I know the bank was going to sell it anyway, but we had so many memories there. I hope for good news that will help me move on with my life." I couldn't believe she was either delusional or thought I was naive. Just looking at her made me feel sick. "I think we should prioritize honesty. There is no foundation without trust," I said gloomily. She hesitantly agreed and nodded. "I need to know," I asked slowly, "how did your relationship with him begin?" Her expression became tense, but she held back a smile, feeling relieved that I was focusing on her boyfriend and not on the recent incident. Then I realized that we were cooperating with her. "Okay," she conceded, addressing me by name. "I'll tell you, Ham. Are you calm now? Won't you go crazy?" I assured her that everything was fine. "He started flirting with me at a local party last month." She nervously rubbed her hands on her knees, indicating her agitation, a habit of hers when she was dishonest. She confessed. I flirted back, "Ham. I'm sorry. I got carried away. He's attractive, and his compliments made me feel happy. He came a few times when you weren't at work. The third time, he came a week before our party, and then we made love." "Was it in our bed or somewhere else?" I asked. "In our bed," she continued, tears streaming down her face. "I'm really sorry. I know it hurts to hear that. I don't know why I did it." She was convincing, I had to admit. It was disturbing to see that my suspicions were confirmed. "We did it again at his house before the party. Was this action a hint of a party?" I asked in response. She shrugged her shoulders uncertainly. "I do not know. He was there when I came out of the bathroom and suddenly he kissed me. I warned him to stop, as we could be caught at any moment. Ignoring my request, he bent down again and offered, 'Just tell the Neanderthal it's an April Fool's joke,' which I did. It was difficult for me to understand his feelings for me and determine our next steps. I felt lost and didn't know what to do." Finally, her voice sounded sincere. "I was crazy about him. Everyone around me was looking at me with a mixture of surprise and pity. I had intentions of visiting you, but your anger was so strong that it scared me. I didn't think he would actually press charges when I visited him in the hospital to convince him to drop the charges. I found out I was pregnant," I said. "Why did you think I would agree to this?" "I was in a desperate situation, Ham," she sobbed. "Everything around me was collapsing after your sentence. I decided to approach him and suggest that he raise our child with me. I'm sorry for what I did. I believe that if you were imprisoned for a year, our relationship would end. It was a moment of truth. I came out earlier than expected, and you helped him set fire to my house. Have all your grandiose plans failed?" "No, Ham," she said almost hysterically. "I just gave him the key." That's all he assured me. "You wouldn't be there when he did that. That's all." I looked at her with disdain, and I could tell she felt it. This proves once again who you can trust. The uncertainty made her wonder if I was talking to her or to myself. "I'm really sorry, Ham," she confessed. "I've messed up a lot. Can you find the strength in your heart to forgive me?" she asked, getting up from her seat. "I'm sorry, but I can't," I confessed. "I'm sorry that I called you here hoping for a miracle. Instead, you just confirmed my worst fears." When she realized her mistake, panic set in. "Please, Ham, don't involve me in what you're up to. I have a child to think about. Don't ruin the child's life too," she pleaded. I walked her to the door and contacted Jared, who then contacted Marley. I sat heavily on a chair with a cold beer in my hand, wondering if I should agree to Haley's request. It took me a while to realize that everything that was happening was the result of her actions. An hour passed before my thoughts were interrupted by the doorbell. At first, I thought it was Jared who had forgotten the key again. To my surprise, a small cardboard box greeted me on the threshold, indicating that it was explosives. Cautiously, I examined and carefully opened the package. I found a note and a disposable mobile phone in the box. The note said that I needed to watch the video and then throw away the phone, the box, and the note. Excited, I sat down at my desk and entered the 6-digit password specified in the note into my phone. There were only 3 apps on the main page, and I opened the video. The recording was dark, the camera focused on the ground at someone's feet. I heard muffled screams, indicating that the man was most likely gagged. He seemed to be begging to be saved. When the lights suddenly turned on, revealing a fenced-off area covered with mud, the man, stripped naked except for a rag in his mouth, was crying, and 2 other men dragged him to the fence and pulled out the gag. He screamed for help, but another voice off-screen urged him to continue, saying there was no one there to help him. The camera appeared to have been mounted on a table or post. Billy Ray picked up the camera and came closer to what was happening. "Hello, Hammer," he said with a smile. "I'll never forget how you changed my life in high school. The way you got involved with Marley changed a lot of things, but I still have to fight this bastard here. He won't bother you, okay?" The video stopped there. The next day, Jared presented the surveillance footage to detectives. 3 days later, Haley was taken into custody. There were rumors in the press that Dan Woodson's ex-lover had run away, leaving his pregnant ex-wife to deal with the consequences. 3 months later, Haley was found guilty and sentenced to 10 years in prison. The sentence could have been shorter if I hadn't been in the house at the time of the fire. Haley made the difficult decision to give her daughter up for adoption. Unfortunately, I didn't have a chance to see her. A week before Christmas, Jared and I had a barbecue. We were joined by Darren McDonald and his new wife, as well as several old classmates from high school. We spent the day playing cornhole. Mr. Tess and his wife Julie didn't show up. It had been a long time. Probably because I was still making payments. Billy Ray was there too. He pulled me aside and told me what happened to him after I stopped him from making a terrible mistake. He seemed grateful for my intervention. Elmer died 5 years ago in a tragic accident while working on an oil rig. Marley and I were in the same bed that night. It turned out she was as interested in my well-being as I was in hers becoming my girlfriend. "You know, baby," I said as she took a deep breath and leaned her head against my chest, "it seems to me that today we're starting a new chapter, starting all over again." She didn't answer right away, but I felt her lift her face to meet mine. "I think the 1st of April was a real start for you," she whispered. None of his friends saw Dan anymore. He was considered missing. Story 2. My past was intertwined with military service. I had traveled to many places, but I always longed to start a family and settle down. When I met Jennifer, I found true happiness. Using my savings, I bought a private house, and now we lived with Jennifer, raising our 7-year-old son, Christopher. I had retired from the military and was now working as a security guard. The job was simple and monotonous. It wasn't anything unusual or exciting. We simply collected money from cash registers and transported it to a secure vault. The work was responsible but not physically demanding. What mattered most to me was that it paid well enough to support my family. Jennifer was also working. She was a saleswoman and consultant in a high-end perfume store. Jennifer had always been a striking woman, capable of connecting with anyone, and this served her well in her job. Even though Jennifer was a beauty, she never gave me any reason to be jealous. She had always been faithful, loving, and caring. I had no complaints about her. I was happy with her. But after a while, something happened that I could never have imagined. It all began with Jennifer changing jobs. "Brian, I have great news," Jennifer said during a family dinner. "I'm all ears, my dear," I replied. "So, today, Eric Stone, the head of an investment center in our city, came to our store. He was so impressed with the way I professionally handled his request that he offered me a job. He offered me a position as his personal secretary. Can you believe it? Sweetheart, I'm genuinely happy for you. But doesn't this seem a bit suspicious to you? I knew you'd react like this. You always find fault in everything. Maybe I shouldn't have told you at all. My love, I've just heard some negative things about this guy. He's involved in some questionable activities. Besides, why would he hire someone with no prior experience? Normally, such positions involve interviews and sifting through numerous candidates. Eric said he's achieved success precisely because he has a keen eye for people. He spots potential right away and personally hires the responsible and suitable ones. I don't know, dear, it sounds like he's just trying to sweet-talk you. If you were some shady character from the back alleys, then maybe you'd have a point to doubt him. But he's a wealthy and successful man who knows how to make money. He offered me an excellent salary, even better than what I earn here. So you've already discussed the salary. How interesting. Honey, what's wrong with your current job? It provides stability and a good income. You've never complained about it before. Sweetie, these are entirely new prospects. Opportunities like this come once in a lifetime. We can't turn down such a chance. Based on your excitement, I assume you've already accepted, is that correct? Yes, I've accepted. I don't see anything wrong with it. It's a fantastic opportunity for my career development. Jennifer, I'm happy that you want to grow in your career, but I think this might not be the right path. Couldn't we have discussed it first? Given it some thought? Brian, it's like you're not even listening to me. When opportunities like this come up, you have to grab them without hesitation. Otherwise, you might miss out. Darling, I always support you, it's just that I believe you're making a mistake right now. I don't want you to get involved with this company, it could end badly. More of your prejudices. You've been listening to the guys at work who've never seen anything in life, but they gather and spread nasty rumors. Eric is a wonderful person, he's pleasant to talk to. I haven't seen anything wrong or suspicious about him. You're talking about my work buddies, but you're making judgments after just one conversation with a stranger. I don't know exactly what he's looking for, but it's clear he's not interested in your professional qualities. Well, thanks, Brian. You're the best at being supportive. Honestly, I never expected this from you. Honey, come back to reality. I want you to excel in your career, but you don't need to get involved with this guy. Nothing good will come of it. I don't want to hurt you, I just want to protect you from making a bad decision. Thanks for your advice, Brian, but I'll decide for myself where I want to work. If you don't understand me and won't support me, that's your opinion. You don't want to consider my perspective. Jennifer, right now, you're acting like a naive teenager. I expect more thoughtfulness from you. But if you want this so badly, go ahead, do what you want. I won't stand in your way. I've always been honest with you, and I remain that way. Jennifer still didn't listen to me and took that darn new job. But she loved it, she literally glowed with happiness. I decided not to interfere with my reproaches. If she enjoyed it, let her work. But inside me, there was brewing dissatisfaction. I couldn't stand Eric, especially after I met him in person. One day, I pulled up to the office building to pick her up. Jennifer was coming out with Eric. That slimy bastard approached me, exchanged pleasantries, and praised Jennifer for her excellent work. I listened to Eric, all his compliments and sweet talk, but it didn't work on me. I could see through him. Beneath his expensive attire, pearly smile, and tan, lurked a dark and sinister personality, steeped in deception. Unfortunately, Jennifer didn't see it. After Jennifer changed her job, she changed significantly. Now she devoted much less time to the family. Her work schedule became erratic, she often stayed late at the office and frequently returned home quite late. Jennifer, I want to talk to you seriously. Yes, Brian, what's wrong? Listen, Jennifer, I understand that you like your new job. But you've distanced yourself from the family. You often stay late at work, and even when you're at home, your mind seems to be somewhere else. It's starting to really bother me. Can't your boss create better working conditions for you? Brian, calm down. Yes, this job demands a lot of attention and time, but it brings in good money. I'm not doing this for nothing. I'm not slacking off, I'm working hard. Do you really enjoy this job so much? Your hard work isn't worth it if it keeps you away from us. Brian, success requires sacrifices. That's what Eric says, and I believe him. After all, he's at the top now. That's great. Now you're quoting Eric to me. How do you know how he achieved success? I doubt he got there through honest hard work. If you can't see that, I'm telling you again, open your eyes. This guy is manipulating you. I don't like it. You used to be a good and loving wife, and now I feel like I'm losing you. I don't like it at all. I'll go and have a serious talk with your boss about your schedule. This is not normal. Are you kidding me? Don't you dare interfere with my work. I'll handle it myself. Eric is a good person. I haven't seen any of the things you're talking about. And now that I've known him for a while, my opinion of him hasn't changed. He's achieved something in life, and I want to achieve something too. You're talking to me about baseless opinions that you've formed out of nowhere. Yes, I agree, this job is taking up too much of my time, but I'm not just doing it for myself. I'm asking you to be patient. There's a lot of work right now, but things will stabilize over time, and it'll get easier. I'll find a way to manage my schedule better. Everything will be fine. All right, dear, I'll try not to press you anymore. But understand me as well. I want the best for you. I've encountered people like him before and can see right through them. I don't want you to have problems. Sweetie, thanks for caring, but don't worry. There won't be any problems. And I'll figure something out with the schedule. Everything will be okay. I tried to make myself endure it. I genuinely wanted to believe Jennifer and refrain from interfering with her work. But time passed, and nothing changed. Jennifer continued to return late. I hadn't spent quality time alone with her for a long time. Jennifer had missed many important moments in Christopher's life. He was starting to get upset with her. I didn't know what to do anymore. Jennifer was drifting further and further away from the family. None of my conversations and attempts to reason with her were successful. I couldn't understand why she was defending that scoundrel. And one day, I couldn't hold back any longer. It was late evening and Jennifer was still not home. I couldn't just sit and wait anymore. I got ready and went to the office center where Jennifer worked. Today I decided to take Jennifer home at all costs, and if I manage to see Eric, then I will express absolutely everything that I think about him. I have to endure this. A security guard, Joseph, met me at the entrance. He knew me well and let me in without any problems. I took the elevator to the 9th floor, where Jennifer's workplace was. It was next to Eric's office. But there was no one here anymore. Jennifer was also not at work. But the door to Eric's office was slightly open, from where strange sounds were coming. I boldly walked to the door and opened it. And suddenly I saw Eric fucking my wife right on the desktop. You bastard. Come here, you bastard. I shouted and pulled Eric away from his wife. Frightened Eric broke free and jumped away from me. Brian, wait, calm down. Let's talk like adults. We can resolve everything peacefully. Eric began to calm me down. Fucking bastard. Your talk will have no effect on me. I knew you were a rotten piece of shit. But I didn't expect this from my wife. That is okay. Now I will tell you about life. I was filled with rage and attacked Eric again. Eric desperately resisted and called for help, but I continued to strike his impudent face. Then I put the bastard in a chokehold and started choking him. Eric wheezed and begged for mercy. Frightened Jennifer couldn't even say a word. She hid in the corner of the room and covered her head with her hands. The bastard's neck crunched in my grip. Eric was losing oxygen. He thought I would strangle him. I really wanted to do this, but I managed to stop in time when Eric was almost unconscious. I let go of the bastard and kicked him away. Eric began to inhale greedily and cough. Jennifer, look at me. Look at me, I said. I made Jennifer raise her head and look at me. You are a pathetic liar. And I was wondering why you were defending this bastard. But now everything is clear to me. So you say you were hired for your professional qualities? You've been making a fool of me for so long. And I naively believed you until the last moment, while you were fucking with this bastard. You are worthless, you are no better than this bastard. And I don't want to see you anymore. And you, son of a bitch, live. Live and remember that you are nobody and nothing. I see right through you, you're just a creature that I don't want to get my hands dirty on. And all the money in the world will not change your essence. Now you can continue your hard work. I'm leaving, I said and slammed the door. I left this damn place. I was filled with pain and hatred, and then there was despair and hopelessness. My family collapsed like a house of cards. This betrayal hurt me deeply, and I could not come to my senses. I came home and grabbed a bottle of whiskey. I understood that my reprisal against Eric would not end well. Yes, I didn't kill him, but this bastard can destroy my life. I waited for the police, but no one came to me, either at home or at work. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't think that bastard would leave me alone after what I did to him. But no one contacted me. And after some time I found out that Eric's company was practically bankrupt. This bastard had bigger problems, so he had no time for me. Eric wanted to take the rest of the money from the defrauded investors and run away, but he failed. The bastard was caught. It was a very high-profile case. Eric's entire empire fell apart like a house of cards. Now his fate was deprived of any joys of life. This bastard was put behind bars for a long time. Of course, it was nice that this bastard got what he deserved, but it didn't make me very happy, because I lost my wife. And Jennifer no longer appeared in our lives. She disappeared somewhere. Friends said that she rented an apartment on the edge of the city. I did not become interested in her fate. I was still burdened by resentment and hatred, which did not allow me to live in peace. I felt this heaviness every day. It was killing me. But one day I received a message. Jennifer wrote to me. She asked for forgiveness. She could not tell me this personally, because she was incredibly ashamed of her actions. She understood all the guilt and regretted that she had not listened to me and succumbed to the influence of this bastard. The more I read this message, the more it seemed to me that this was a farewell message. I felt something was not good. Jennifer was clearly planning to do something to herself. In an instant, I drowned out the resentment and pain in myself and decided to immediately find her. I found out the exact address from my friends and immediately headed to the apartment where Jennifer lived. I persistently rang the doorbell, but no one answered. Then I kicked in the door and rushed inside. I saw Jennifer lying on the floor with an empty pill bottle next to her. I quickly called an ambulance and Jennifer was taken to the hospital. Jennifer was on the verge of death, but she was still saved. Later I visited her in the hospital. We talked calmly, and I decided that there was no point in keeping this hatred and anger anymore. Of course, in my heart of hearts, I haven't forgiven her. But I didn't want to feel guilty if she did something to herself. This step was not easy for me, but after that I was able to start a new life without regrets. Jennifer spent some time in the hospital. Psychologists worked with her. Her mental state was sad. But after 3 months, she was discharged and contacted me. She wanted to reconnect with our son. I helped Jennifer return to normal life, but we were no longer a married couple. Now Jennifer devoted more time to our child, but each of us began our own new lives dedicated to not repeating such mistakes again. Jennifer was grateful for my attitude towards her after everything that happened. And I was able to continue to enjoy life. I realized that I shouldn't dwell on the past, no matter how terrible it was. Life is full of difficulties, but that doesn't mean you have to give up and stop seeing the good. After a while, I met the beautiful Samantha and I have a wonderful romantic relationship with her. I could see Jennifer watching the progression of our relationship with regret. But she had herself to blame for that. She has no one else to blame. And I was able to start my own security agency, which was hard, but I did it.